Alright, this is going to be the fourth video in the geometry review series of all of the following topics. Here is the formulas on the front of the formula chart and the back in case you need to refer back to these. It tells you that the judges must have at least a quarter-mile visibility in order to accurately and impartially judge the jumpers. This is of a ski event. And if the hypotenuse of the triangle shown below represents the path taken from beginning to the end of the jump, do the judges have the required minimum visibility to judge the event? So we're looking for this distance, and we need to know, is this distance a quarter mile or less? Okay, because they have to be able to see that entire distance. So first, we will solve using Pythagorean theorem. And once you solve that out, you get approximately 854.4. These are in feet. Okay, so now they're talking about miles. So first of all, 1/4 is 0.25 miles. So we're going to be comparing this to 0.25 miles once we get it converted. Okay, so we said in the last couple problems that had conversions that 1 mile was 5,280 feet. So if we convert this, 854.4 divided by 5280, and you get 0.162 miles. Is this less than the 0.25 miles? And the answer is yes. So they do have enough visibility. This problem, they're asking for which house is closer to the school, Kelsey's or Katrina's, because they're wanting to see whose house they should stay at. And once you figure out whose is closer, they want to know how much closer it is than the other person's. So from the school to Katrina's, the easiest way for y'all is probably going to be to do Pythagorean theorem. So you could create a right triangle with your rise and run, okay, and plug those in to get the hypotenuse. So for this to Katrina's house, this is a 7 and a 9. So if you do 7 squared plus 9 squared to get your hypotenuse, you end up with 130, and you take the square root, and it's approximately 11.40. So the distance from Katrina's to the school is 11.40. Now we can do the same thing going to Kelsey's house from the school and create a right triangle and count our rise over our run. And that is a distance of 10 and 6. So if you do 10 squared and 6 squared, that gives you a total of 136. And then you take the square root and get 11.66. So whose house should they stay at if they want to stay at the closer house would be Katrina's. So Katrina's house is closer, and then the second part of the question asks how much closer, and that is going to be the difference. So you just subtract. Minus 11.40 is a difference of 0.26. They did not give you units, so just write the word units. I don't know if they were considering this miles or what. Alright, for number 20, you're asked to determine the slope of AB with points A at -6, -4, and B at 3, 8. Then they ask, can the slope ratio be used to help you find the distance between points A and B? What is the distance from A to B? So this is similar to what we did in the last problem. If we want to know the distance from A to B, can we use the slope? And we have to find that slope first. So slope, remember, is rise over run. So this is like what we did on the last problem. Okay, and on this one, our rise is 12 and our run is 9. So our slope, rise over run, can be reduced to 4/3. So that's your first answer. Now, can it be used to determine the distance between A and B? Would be yes, and we would use Pythagorean theorem because we just created a right triangle. So you would do 9 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. When you do 9 squared plus 12 squared, you get 225. You take the square root and get 15. So the distance from A to B is 15. That's your second answer. Actually, third. Yes is the second answer. And then they ask to add point C. So here's point C at 8, -4, and that forms a triangle with A and B. So let me finish off this triangle in blue. Oops, that's not blue. And they say find the length of the mid-segment that's parallel to BC. So this is thinking back a couple months, actually, the last time we talked about mid-segments. A mid-segment connects two midpoints, so, and then it's parallel to the third side of the triangle. So the parallel to BC, okay, if BC is running this way, that means it's going to be the mid-segment connecting the midpoint of AB to the midpoint of AC, because it's going to run like this and be parallel. So it's going to be somewhere here. I don't know the exact midpoint. I haven't found it yet. This is just to give you a general idea of what it will look like. We don't have to find those exact midpoints if you remember the rule about mid-segments. And the rule is that a mid-segment is half the length of that third side that it's parallel to. So we can find the length of BC and then just take half of it. So we'll find the length of BC the same way we did the length of AB. So I'll create, using the slope, a right triangle. So we have rise over run, and it is 5 for the run, 12 for the rise. So 5 squared plus 12 squared, and that gives you, when you solve it all out, it's 13. That's actually one of your Pythagorean triples, so it saves you a lot of work if you remember that. And then we have to take half of it to get this length. So divided by 2 would be 6.5, and that's the fourth answer in that problem. All right, 21 says that Justin is building a border for his mother's vegetable garden. He wants to make sure that the angles at the corners are right angles. The only tool he has is a 100-foot length of rope with knots tied exactly 1 foot apart. Justin knows that if he has his brother and sister stretch the rope at specific knot intervals, he can form a 90-degree angle. Which number of knots should separate Justin and his siblings to make these 90-degree angles? That's a really wordy and lengthy way of asking which one of these would form a right triangle. Because if his sister is on one corner and brother the other, and they're stretching it out, they want this to make a 90-degree angle. For it to be a right triangle that they create, this has to be, or it has to make Pythagorean theorem true. And C would always be the longest. It would be the hypotenuse. So you simply check the two shorter sides squared. Is their sum equal to the longest side squared? So you're asking yourself, is 10 squared plus 24 squared equal to 30 squared? So in your calculator, you can type this in 2 parts. 10 squared plus 24 squared, enter, and you get 676. And then 30 squared, enter, and you get 900. Obviously, those are not equal, so that would not form a 90-degree angle here. And that's how you would check each one of these. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead just for time's sake and tell you the answer is C. But that's how you would check every single one of these, and only one works out to actually be equal. 22 is an isosceles triangle with leg lengths of 34 centimeters. If the height measured from the vertex angle is 16 centimeters, find the length of the base. So I'm going to draw a picture. We have isosceles triangle, and we're looking for this base. Okay, so from the top, they tell us the height, and then we know the legs of the triangle are equal. So let me label what we know. The height obviously is going to create a 90-degree angle with the base. That's what makes it the base and the height. And they tell us it is 16. The legs, these two that are equal to each other, are 34. They want to know the length all the way across the bottom. Well, if we look at just part of this part here, we can see that we have a right triangle, and we can use Pythagorean theorem, where the 34 is your c, because it's across from the 90. So 16 squared plus b squared equals 34 squared. Okay, and you work this out, and you end up finding that it is 30 for b, which is this missing piece here. So 30, but that's from here to the edge. The question is asking the length of the entire base of this whole triangle. So then you just have to double it. Don't forget that last step. You will probably have 30 as an answer choice if this were a multiple choice question. So 60, and the units were centimeters. Now they want us to repeat that same problem for leg lengths with measures of 20, height still 16. I'm not going to work that one out for you because it is exactly the same. I want you to try that. If you want to check your answer, I'll go ahead and give that to you, but I would try working it on your own first. You end up getting 24.